Going in 10. 3, 2, 1, go.
Message of the week this week is mechanics, consistency, and then intensity. I have Ricky, Samantha, and Aaron with me today. And first thing we're going to do is I want you to each just brief this how you would in a class. Like a quick 30-second brief of what you would say starting your Monday morning at 5 a.m. Ricky, you get to start us off.
Oh,
Yay.
I was not wanting that, but that's fine. How I would brief this: mechanics, consistency, then intensity. These things should be taught pretty much in that order. With everything we do, how we coach, this is the order of operations. Intensity specifically being that last piece. I think it's appropriate to just keep that hierarchy in mind anytime we learn a movement, as we're progressing a movement. That's the quick snippet. That's exactly what I would say. Pretty quick.
Samantha?
I'd say mechanics, consistency, and then intensity is a CrossFit charter that is very paramount, very important to the safety and the efficacy of our program. And it is important that you do those in that order and that you are hitting all of those when appropriate.
Yeah.
Aaron?
I would say, usually this one, mechanics, consistency, and intensity is the order of operations for our training methodology, right? So the first thing that we want to do is learn the movements and learn them correctly. And then we want to do that again and again over time, every time. And then we start adding in weight, speed, distance, all of those other things that turn up the intensity.
Amazing. I love that. Okay, so I dug into one of the journal articles today from 2020, and this is one thing that I liked that I'm going to read off. So, mechanics, consistency, intensity. Charter further elucidates how the program should be implemented by providing a hierarchy of concerns and establishing a linear timeline of development. I love that part, the linear timeline for development. This is how we learn our skills. This is how we improve our fitness and all those things. So we're going to start with mechanics. What is mechanics?
The way you move.
Love it.
Like, you
Simple.
can have poor mechanics, you can have great mechanics, you can have everywhere in between mechanics. You can have efficient, inefficient mechanics, but mechanics is the way that you move either your body or an object through space.
Wow, amazing. Any other add-ons to that?
I would say, it's the foundation of that movement, and what we as coaches are going to build around for getting you warmed up. So those mechanics and moving safely is like how we are building out a lesson plan for the most part, a lot of the time, right? So we are going to want you to hit certain ranges of motion, certain points of performance. We're going to want that movement to be a certain way for your safety and for the efficiency of the movement.
I would say, I'm just building off of what you two said. With regard to mechanics, you think of it as the foundation. You also think of it as your structural piece. This is what you're going to build off of for all your movements. If you prioritize the mechanics for your movements, and that's your mindset when you do a pull-up, when you do an air squat, when you do any of these movements, that's your pillar. That is how you're going to continue to move. If you have those poor mechanics, you're not hitting full range of motion, you're not keeping good control of your body, those are going to break down as you start now adding those remaining layers. So again, you're thinking of it as this very pillar piece of your fitness as you progress.
I love that. How can we achieve proper mechanics?
By doing them.
Yeah,
It sounds silly, but it's like, if your focus is always on that last layer, that intensity piece, then you are never going to achieve proper mechanics, right? There's a time and a place, and it is often every day during the warm-up or during certain workouts where it makes sense for you to slow down a little bit, but it is going to be putting a deliberate focus on it. The other thing I would say on that is how we achieve that is not by just focusing on a competition standard. So, for example, like squatting below parallel is good for our joints and whatever. But if your focus is to like toe the line on some arbitrary competition standard that the CrossFit Games has to hold, then you are not optimizing your mechanics and you're not optimizing your ability to move better, right? So I would say it's going to be pushing the limit of your mechanics. Just because something is good enough for a competition standard doesn't mean that that's as far as you should go in your development in your mechanics.
Yeah. I think one of the best things I ever heard was in the Bergner seminar at the CrossFit Games, where one of their coaches said, like, the best way to learn a squat snatch position is to be in a squat snatch position, right? And so, like, sitting and holding a barbell overhead correctly. And it's uncomfortable and it sucks and nobody wants to do that ever. But like the best, like you said, the best way to do it is to do it. I think as an athlete, the best thing, or member, the best thing that you can do for yourself to achieve proper mechanics is to be open to coaching, right? I think, like to Ricky's point, mechanics are the foundation of everything, and all of the things that we do in here scaffold onto each other. So especially new folks, or even kind of as you get into your journey, you see people doing pull-ups, doing chest bar pull-ups, doing bar muscle ups, doing these really cool, difficult things, and you're like, oh my God, I want to do that. And it's great to have an end goal, but you're never going to get a bar muscle up if your jumping pull-up mechanics are not correct. You're never going to get a bar muscle up. Well, I shouldn't say never, but like you could get the strength to wing yourself and chuck yourself up over the bar, but eventually your mechanics are going to get in the way of your progress and your efficiency. And so starting from the beginning and seeing everything as a step is, I think, vital. And then being open to coaching and feedback. You know, we don't like give you these cues to bully you. We give you these cues so that A, you stay safe and you can be efficient, right? Like I want you to be safe and not hurt yourself, and I want you to work smarter, not harder. So, you know, all the things that we tell you about mechanics are helping you kind of in the long game, I would say.
I would add, like you were kind of saying this, but I would add never being afraid to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
It would make sense for you, right? Like, I don't know if anybody saw this, but there was this like video of games athletes. It was probably like 5 or 6 years ago, and they like couldn't do single unders anymore, which is like kind of crazy because now there's crossovers that we bring in, right? And those are often in a single under or a double under variety. But holding on to your basics, like Erin said, being able to still do a jumping pull up with good mechanics or a good ring row or all of those things, and stepping back to those as a reminder when it makes sense is also going to be very beneficial.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
With mechanics in general, this is the structure in which longevity happens, right? So when you learn the mechanics with an air squat or a PVC pipe, when we're coaching, right? So now turning over to like the coaching side of things, when we're doing our warm-ups, we are looking at it from, okay, I'm going to get your body ready, but I'm going to start you off with just an air movement, whether that is a ring row, whether that is just a push-up from your knees. We are focusing on progressing the movement incrementally in the warm-up because that's how it's supposed to be throughout your fitness journey. You're not going to, okay, you're super strong. I love that. Now I want to see you snatch. I'm going to have you do the most mechanically difficult movement with a barbell, and you're strong, but no mechanics. There's nothing to help build off of. So again, we're starting out with basics for a purpose, right? This is how we bring longevity into the gym every single day.
I love that.
And on your, like on Ricky's point, like if you're trying to get better at your mechanics, be very intentional with those warm-ups. Like when we're running you through those things, don't just like mindlessly work through them. Be very intentional with them. That is your practice. That is the time. That is an ideal time to get better at those things.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, mechanics, I'm gonna be really honest. I kind of lost the point, but it's coming back. It's coming back. I think just like being willing to hear what it is that we're asking of you and suggesting of you. Ultimately, I cannot force you to do anything in this gym. Like, you're an adult. What am I gonna do? Like, like take you hostage and force you to like squat in a certain way. However, I think if you're repeatedly hearing the same cue throughout an hour, and I try to be conscious of not just harping for 60 minutes because that kind of runs you down. But like, if you're hearing the same cues throughout an hour, if you're hearing the same cues across coaches, to me, that's an exciting place to be because it gives me something to learn. I think the mechanics of things is the most fun part of what we do, right? Like getting into kind of the technical, like, okay, what should I be doing differently? It gives a lot of body awareness. When Samantha says, you're doing this, I would want you to try this. I'm like, oh, like, and you just become a better and better athlete all the time. And then on top of that, it never stops. Like, a personal example is like recently in the last couple of months, I've gotten new feedback that I don't typically get in a squat, which is that my heels are coming up. And that's just not it's not that I've never heard it, but that's not one that I frequently get in a squat. And Samantha gave me that cue and I was like, I've been hearing that lately and I'm not really sure what's going on. Like, is it my shoes? Maybe. Am I tight somewhere that is like kind of affecting the way that my weight and my body is moving? So to me, it's an exciting thing to get feedback and to like just know that it never stops. Like, your mechanics are never just gonna be perfect and you never have to think about it again.
And I'm sure like we need to move on, but one thing I just want to point out is mechanics or like great mechanics does not mean technical perfection. Like, that also needs to kind of be adjusted, right? It doesn't mean technical perfection all the time. It just means like you need to understand what those major points are to keep you safe, to keep you moving full range of motion, all of that. That's one thing that I remember reading through like some of the journal articles. Is like, we're not looking for like this perfect, very technically, perfect pattern on a snatch or anything else, but we do want you to understand what they are so that you can continue to develop it.
I love that.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say on mechanics that really stuck out to me when we did our gymnastics course, and maybe just you can build off of this if you guys remember something different. But she was talking about how your movement is on like a scale. You have poor and like perfect, right? And the further you're along on the perfect side, when you add that intensity piece, the more room you have to deteriorate, I guess. Yeah. So the more tired, the more perfect you are warming up, as you add intensity and you get more tired, the more you can your mechanics can come down, but they're still good. Whereas if you're here and you're chicken winging in the warm up, you're probably not going to be able to do a bar muscle up in a high intensity place. For sure. So that was one of things that's more just like a why mechanics, another why to that.
That's great.
Yeah. And I think like also to Ricky's point, so like something that also is said a lot in, the CrossFit world and the coaching world is to never use the cue perfect, right? Like, if somebody improves their squat mechanics, never tell them that was perfect, which I kind of do that sometimes, but I try really hard not to, because, right, you don't want like complacency. Perfect kind of becomes like a filler word, or you get a little lazy maybe as a coach if you're just telling people good, great all the time. And then two, as an athlete, you're like, oh, it's perfect, done, work's done, check it off, never have to think about it in your squat again. Which, as we know, not the case.
So not the case.
No.
As someone who's like prides herself on being a great squatter, I was like, I have some learning to do still, which is great, right?
Very similar things happening recently as well.
But rather than, we're not pursuing perfection, it's back to this, like, we're pursuing virtuosity. We're pursuing as good of movement as we can get at any given point.
I love that. That is the perfect segue into my next question. How do we know? How do we know we have, maybe not mastered, but how do we know we have achieved the mechanics of a movement?
You can feel it in your heart.
You just know.
I would say like a good way to identify if you've moved past like good mechanics or is if you catch yourself fixing something. If you are moving through a movement and you're like, oh, that felt wrong. Like you identify what the issue was as an athlete, or even, I mean, from a coaching standpoint, you'll see it happen, right? As you're going through and you're walking through, identifying maybe some fixes in a class, you're gonna see a member, and I've seen this multiple times, where they do something and they go, that wasn't it. That was wrong. Hold on, let me redo it. And you're like, so proud of you. Like it's that moment that you understand, like they understand the mechanics. And so if you're able to identify what those points of performance are, what the foundation of that movement is, and you understand I did it right or I did it wrong, and you can make that fix yourself, I feel like you've then moved on to, okay, now we can progress.
Yeah, like almost like when you can spot the flaws yourself.
Yes.
On yourself.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, when you know what is expected of you and you can feel whether it went well or not. That's not to say that a coach isn't going to nitpick that a little bit more, right? But overarchingly, yeah, if you are able to know what is expected of that movement and able to self-correct, you're in a pretty good spot.
Or if you ask the coach, hey, I think something's off.
Mhm.
Can you watch this movement?
Mhm.
They're already identifying that there's something wrong. They don't know what it is, and they're looking for that feedback. That's also a good way to understand, like, you're gathering the body awareness to identify whether or not that mechanic is off.
Love that.
I mean, yeah, I would just reiterate both of those points. I think too, something I often look towards or look to are the 10 general physical principles that we have on the wall, spray painted on the wall. So like an easy one is balance. If your balance is off in your squat, maybe something is going on with your squat mechanics. Or a lift, right? I think squat is kind of the easiest foundational movement because it's a part of so much that we do to talk about. But you can start to see either maybe improvements in speed or like flexibility or these other areas. But I often, like, the one that sticks out to me is sort of like, where am I getting stuck? Like if I'm like hitting a point or like a sticking point, and my example again is like balance. Like if you feel yourself unbalanced in a movement, and sometimes naturally that happens, but that might be a cue to you as far as like something about the way that I moved maybe wasn't totally on point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you guys said it best before I even asked the question is, like, do we ever achieve mechanics fully? Probably not. Like, everybody can move better.
Mhm.
There's never anyone that I'm like, that is the most perfect mover in the world. And I would say, like, there are really good movers. And I also think those people that are really good at moving are the highest, I don't want to say risk, but I'm going to say it because I don't have another word, at not being coached.
Oh yeah.
Right? And they're
Yeah.
the ones, and I feel like they're the most at risk for being complacent and not being intentional in the warm-ups and being like, well, I squat pretty good, so it's good enough for me. Right? And I've personally experienced this recently. I'm like, I can't even do a good air squat on cue. Right? And that's crazy. So like, I think that people who have really good mechanics oftentimes find themselves not working towards mechanics anymore.
Yeah, and it is the more proficient you become at the movements that we do in here, the harder it is to coach you, in a sense, right? Like, and everyone can be coached, but it becomes harder to spot flaws. It becomes harder to, like, pick out little things that you can do better. that's not to say that they don't exist.
Right.
Well, I was gonna say you also, because you can have good mechanics and you can have bad mechanics, right? So we keep using the words mechanics, but we're not describing what that is. The truth is that there are people who are going to have bad mechanics in the breakdown, and that's what they're just used to. That is their mechanics, and that's not what we want. And so it is really hard to identify or to bring them to that awareness, because they're going to immediately think of, no, I have a great squat. What are you talking about? Because I've been doing this just like this for X amount of months, years. And you're like, well, I see the breakdown. I see the issue. So again, it's almost identifying like mechanics is a word, but then you've got the breakdown of you have bad mechanics or good mechanics. So I don't know. I don't know why that brought me to that point when you were talking, Erin, but I derailed.
For sure. The thought process is terrific. I can feel.
Samantha's like,
I don't know. I feel like our actual best movers are the most coachable. Just because they're harder to coach doesn't mean they're not the most coachable.
Right. Yeah. I
that's
would
what I
say the
mean.
difference between
So-
it's hard to give cue. It's harder for me to find things to tell
Absolutely.
you.
or
That's yeah.
appropriate
Absolutely.
Yeah, but our good movers are coachable as humans. Sorry, I didn't mean that to be like
Yeah,
a,
no,
a statement
absolutely.
about
No.
the athlete. It was like a it becomes hard.
I
as a coach.
just wanted to clarify, like,
yeah.
if a coach with you is getting like very minute and nitty gritty and stuff that, I guess this is the point I'm trying to make. If a coach is getting very nitty gritty where you're like, this feels tiny, you probably have pretty dang good mechanics.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Like, so
Sure.
that's kind of the point I'm trying to make with that. And if it feels like with your coach, it is like almost you two are working together about how to make this movement better. It's like, oh, I did that and that didn't get better. And they're like, okay, yep. Okay. Let's look at that again. Okay. I need to watch it again. You're probably moving really well. Like if it becomes more of a process with your coach, and that's not that either of you are doing anything wrong. It's just those mechanics that start to set in a way that it is more challenging to
For sure.
identify flaws and
For sure.
and pieces there.
Yeah,
It's also
absolutely.
harder to cue because you have to, it's a new cue most of the time. You're not using your like piggy bank of cues. You are looking at it and going, I see it, but I don't know how to approach this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the specific thing I want to identify is. I just know it's there. It's hard because you do have to go outside your comfort zone, but that is our goal as coaches, is we are meant to. We're meant to make you go out of your comfort zone on this, and we have to too.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, and I think also like being open to feedback at all times, like
Yeah.
as athletes, like if you've been here for 3 weeks and you've been squatting here for 3 weeks and someone finally like says something about your squat, rather than being like, well, I've been here for 3 weeks and no one has said that before. Like, we also don't see everything all the time, and we also have a pool of athletes we're trying to work with and give cues to, and we're not perfect. We're all trying to get better as we're doing this, and so being open to feedback at all times, I think, is a good thing athletes in here can start doing.
Absolutely.
And not that they don't do it already, but that
Yeah.
they can continue doing.
yeah.
Being open to something new.
And I will say too, like something that I think is a really big point of pride, at least I can speak for myself. I think the other coaches would agree with this, is that, often I've seen our members go to competition, and that doesn't have to be your goal, but it's an easy way to kind of get a get a pulse on like what's happening,
Okay.
And so, competitions that I've been to where we see our members, and it doesn't matter if they're a scaled athlete, a master's athlete, across the board, we move really well, right? And so it's easy day in, day out, kind of what we do in here, it just kind of becomes normal. And I would say this, especially to like people who are new to this gym, is that, what we do in here day in, day out, it does actually like translate very well to the outside world and the little ecosystem of CrossFit. And people have said that at competitions, like everyone at your gym moves well. And then you watch some other folks and you're like, mechanics. Like, you're like, whew.
Yeah.
Like, And then in traveling and going to other gyms, I've been to gyms where not a single drill for an overhead squat was done before people started putting weight on their barbells. And A, that's like terrifying, but B, it really just highlights that the things that we do, the drills that we do, the warm-ups that we write, like the expectations that we're held to as coaches, does benefit our community.
Mhm.
And I've seen in real ways too.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a great place to end on mechanics is like, first off, like you said, our gym moves well. Like on Monday, I had an experience where I was watching people do toast bar, and I'm like, I am highly impressed with how good almost all of these look.
Yeah.
And the ones that I'm like are iffy about, they're still not horrible.
No.
I'm like really impressed with how well our gym moves. So good job, you guys. You guys
That's
are all like seriously doing awesome. Like
Yes.
cannot get over that. But also, we are always trying to be better.
Yes.
Now we're gonna get into consistency. What is it?
Who's gonna start?
Yeah.
Is being consistent, is that a good enough definition?
Almost.
I think we started to get into it there was a little bit of alluding to it in the mechanics piece, which is you are doing it again and again and again, right? And Liv, you even talked about it. So we have our mechanics foundation and we have this continuum of how well we can move, right? And it is the ability to consistently, even if weight is added, even if we go a little bit faster, that we are in this upper threshold of not perfect, but upper threshold of maintaining those mechanics, right? It might take a quick reminder from your coach, hey, keep those heels down in your squat, but then you like do a quick reset and then you're back into that position. You're able to hit it again. Okay. It doesn't mean that you're perfect every single time, but it's oh, wait, I rocked forward, reset. Okay, now I can hit my squat again, right? Or a coach points it out or something like that. So it's that ability to take a breath and go back into your movement mechanics at a relatively high level of technicality. Again, not perfection, but relatively high level.
I would say just at just consistency is repeated and sustained effort or action, right? And so if we're now adding in, we're taking mechanics and we want to get those, like Samantha's saying, in the upper threshold of, what is safe and efficient. And now we're doing that with a repeated and sustained effort. And so there's always going to be kind of variations within that, but you can also have consistency in a less than ideal way. I don't want to say like a bad way, but you can, right? Like you can consistently have poor mechanics, right?
Yeah.
So consistency itself is not a positive thing. You can consistently not food prep and then have to go to Whole Foods every day for lunch. Right? So yeah, I would say like on its own, consistency is a repeated and sustained effort or action would be my definition. And if we're like stacking that on top of what we've already talked about, then the idea is to repeatedly sustain high quality mechanics.
Love that.
I love the way you just said that because to your point, if you are in here every day and you are not putting an emphasis on your mechanics, then you are probably consistently moving less than ideal, which is going to practice consistency in a less than ideal way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like if you're in here consistently, you are doing something. And if it's not with an intention to improve your mechanics, then that is not happening. And I'm not saying that should 100% like we'll get into the intensity and piece and how important that is. But if moving better is something that you have an opportunity for, and it's not a focus of yours every day, then you're probably consistently not improving it.
I had a coach who would always say, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
There you go.
Right. And I know we try not to use the word perfect, but the idea, right, being that like you can practice something and if you're doing it incorrectly, like you're not right. You're not going to improve. It's not going to get better. So, practicing the way that we want to move, whether that's from a PVC pipe, right? Hold the PVC pipe the way that you're going to hold a barbell, right? Or an air squat, right? Air squat the way that you're going to back squat. And so all of these things, again, just like continue to scaffold and build on each other.
I think that really comes back to that intentionality piece again. I think I wholeheartedly believe that intentionality is so huge in this concept, because like you guys said, like in our warm-ups, we provide mechanics practice consistently. We do. We plan it out. If not, like we try to get as much time practicing the mechanics as possible. Use those times to intentionally practice. When we talk about how to hold the bar and where to hold it on the shin and where our shoulders should be in relation to our hips, we're not just like talking, right? We're not just blabbing to like because we love our voice, right? Like we're saying this for a reason. And if you can be like, okay, and then be like, okay, I can feel that. That is going to get you better. If you can somewhat intentionally use the warm-ups every single time and utilize your whole entire hour to get better, I feel like your mechanics will skyrocket, honestly.
Sure.
I think so. It's funny because I always end up doing this. Consistency is key. Okay, I'm gonna say it anyways. If you want to move better, if you have intentions to become fitter, you want to be able to go from your ring row to a strict pull up to a chest to bar to, right? You can really use this logic anywhere. You have to consistently show up. You have to consistently practice those movements to get you to that point. If you have a goal, the only way to achieve that goal is to consistently progress towards that. Right? There's that quote by Greg Glassman, towards a distant horizon. Help me out. Slope trajectory towards a distant horizon.
Yes.
Right? But regardless, your goal in mind is not going to happen fast. It is not going to be a quick fix. It is not coming in 1 to 2 times a week. You have to come in more than 3 times a week if you want to see progression, right? It is not going to be fast. It is a slow uphill battle that you have to really intentionally work towards. So show up, put in the effort, consistently work on those mechanics, consistently listen to the coach, consistently show up. Like you have to use that logic in place of, and I'm pretty sure I use that exact same example in the other message of the week, which is consistency is key, but it is so imperative.
true.
Like
It's
you
important.
need it.
Yeah.
You need it in order to progress if you want to see any sort of action in the right direction.
Yeah. Love it. And I think, well, at risk of being redundant, but it's like, it's okay to have like Ricky is saying, like an end goal or like a distant, kind of thing that you're reaching for. Like we take any of our most complicated movements. So let's say like a clean and jerk. What is a clean and jerk built of? A clean and jerk is essentially kind of a deadlift plus a squat plus a press, right? Like breaking things down and then starting to see how all of the other things that we're doing in here can build towards that, right? If you have poor mechanics in a strict press, you're going to have poor mechanics in a push press, going to have poor mechanics in a push jerk, which means your clean and jerk is not going to be as efficient or maximal as it could, right? So even, just an empty bar push press, like all of these things build into one another. And I try to highlight those moments in class for people where, it's like, okay, the way that we push up is also the way that we bench press, is also the way that we do all of these other things. And so nothing is too small to ignore, I guess.
Okay, how can we achieve the doing mechanics consistently? How can we achieve that?
Show up.
Be coachable.
Yeah, I think it goes back to show up for yourself, show up for the right reasons, right? I personally don't have specific goals in mind, but I show up because I want to consistently get better. I want to move better for a long time, right? Consistency in all of this is going to provide longevity with your fitness. And so show up, be present, be here for the right reasons, be here for you. That's all I can really think of. I just keep shouting show up in my head. I'm sorry.
Show up, show up, show up, show up. Any other thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think what Ricky said is like the most important part, right?
Yeah.
If you come,
absolutely.
we'll help you through it. And also I just want to add, like, we've been saying a lot of being intentional in your warm up and your workout, and I wholeheartedly believe in that. And if you just come and like let us help you out, you'll get a lot of the way there too.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We can't help you if you're not here.
Right.
I
For
mean,
sure.
that's the first thing is just, being here. And then, I would say being open and being coachable.
And I guess your question was, how do you show up consistent, or how do you do mechanics consistently? Find a motivation that works for you, right? Make some friends, like we've talked about community. That's huge. Like, figure out a way that is motivating for you. Maybe setting a goal is a good one. There's a number of ways to do that, but find something that is going to make you show up.
Love it. How do we know? How do we know that we have done the mechanics consistently enough that we are ready to add intensity?
I have an example, but I'm struggling to see if it will work. So, how do we know if we've consistently hit mechanics, right? Like, is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, when I was trying to learn a bar muscle, so I'm going to try this to like pull it from a personal perspective. When I was trying to learn bar muscle ups, I wasn't doing them in the workouts. I was like, we would practice them on the days that they were written on the board, sure. But when I was actually trying to work on it, I would do it under fatigue and I'd do it after class. Right before the next class started, I would just try to get any sort of bar muscle up. And I was just trying to get the mechanics down. Before then, I started implementing them towards workouts. And once I was consistently able to hit them with proper mechanics, then it was like, okay, now I can really start introducing them into workouts, right? And it may not be, we're going to get to this. The intensity is going to be different, right? Like I might have to adjust rep schemes, but once I consistently got that movement and then I could bring it into the workout, then I knew like I can start picking this up. But you also have to kind of progress with that intensity. It's not going to be like, okay, we've got 8 bar muscle ups in the workout and they're meant to be done really fast. And you're like, that's going to take me the full hour, right? So you adjust back and you hit those numbers or those rep schemes like consistently, and then you're going to progressively add that as you go. But I was just trying to think of it instead of like from a coaching perspective of just kind of bringing it from a member or athlete perspective of like, how do you know when you've consistently hit mechanics? How do you know that you've consistently like gotten good at one thing and you know you can now add it in?
So with your example though, how did you know that you felt like you could add it in workouts? Because you said once you would hit the proper mechanics. What did that mean to you for this example?
That's a great one. I knew that I was able to string them together and I was never chicken winging. Okay, that was my biggest priority. If we ever talk about this, one of the biggest priorities I had was I never wanted to get to the point where I was chicken winging on a bar muscle up. The moment I felt like the pull was wrong, I dropped. I wouldn't continue. So even now, if I start a fill pull wrong, I'm dropping. So how did I know? I was able to string multiple reps together under fatigue without ever really causing massive breakdown in my movement.
So I would say that came from you knowing what massive breakdown meant.
Sure.
And you knew what it looked like to be a safe and effective movement. With gymnastics, a lot of that is going to feel right. Like most of you listening to this are going to know if your swing is off. You're going to know if something doesn't feel right with that. right?
Mm-hmm.
With some of the other weightlifting movements, sometimes that is a little bit less. And so you need to put a lot of conscious effort into talking to a coach and listening to a coach. Because, for example, often people can't quite feel when their back rounds or can't quite feel when they're rolling in their knees if because we can't see ourselves, right? So that is just something that I would say you are going to have to put in, like Ricky talked about, the reps and the effort, and know and really dissect what it feels like when a coach says that you have had something break down compared to when you haven't.
Love that.
Yeah. And then I still like go back to these 10 principles, right? I mean, you're going to see improvements in those areas, right? Like maybe it's your strength. Maybe you're starting to see endurance or improvements in strength and endurance, right? Like I can now lift heavier longer, right? As well as this like self-awareness of, you know, knowing how your body's moving through space. I think too, you know, I don't want this to like become a gym of just like cell phones out, video cameras, but when it's appropriate and when there's time and it's not interrupting anything, I do find it helpful to take a video of yourself doing a movement. Even like I do it all the time. I will never post a video of myself working out on social media because that is my worst nightmare, personally. But right, I mean, when we're lifting or you know at certain times, I'll just take a little video of myself and go back and watch it in slow motion and like just scroll and kind of look at what's happening. Right? Am I getting the bar to my hips in a clean? No.
Probably not.
The answer
is
a lot
no.
of the time is I could be
didn't.
better at that part of the movement. But or like watching my feet. And so then, you know, you can kind of like say like, okay, well that's what that felt like and that's what it looked like. I kind of had this conversation with Justin the other day where I was like, I feel one thing, and then when I watch this video, something different is happening. Help me! Like, can you watch me do this and walk me through the because it's hard sometimes like bridge that gap. But yeah, I would say generally I always go back to like these words and just like, are you seeing improvements or breakdowns in those words?
Yeah, I also think that. A lot of it is testing it out a little bit, testing the waters, knowing what the stimulus of the workout is, and being like, so for instance, let's go with weight. Okay, it's a no heavier than 95 for the ladies. My max is 105, but I can do 95, but it's supposed to be fast. Like, should you? Right? Like, what the intention of this is me going touch and go, like, I'm going to go 65 so that I can have proper mechanics there, right? You're going to get better that way rather than necessarily going heavy weight. Maybe in gymnastics, this is another example from Monday. We had toes to bar, and I had an athlete that had been practicing toes to bar, and they were like, should I do some toes to bar? And I'm like, yeah. Like, let's do 1 or 2 toes to bar and then finish out the rest with knee tucks. Like, a little part of it is testing the waters and learning how to scale appropriately and talking to your coach and having that communication.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I also think it's important for athletes to figure out with themselves, like, what is going to be a low risk test the waters and what is not.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So like a knee tuck versus toes to bar, relatively low risk if you try to do a toes to bar and then you start swinging and then it doesn't go well. Right.
Absolutely.
Compared to going too heavy in a deadlift or a front squat and hurting your back.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's kind of sussing out for yourself what movements are going to be a little bit riskier if you add intensity, which ones are going to be a little bit less, and just the amount of reps that you've had within those.
And last but not least, we have our intensity piece. Sorry. No, I am going to blow that up. That is amazing.
I hope you can hear it.
Oh, we'll make sure. Okay, intensity. What is it?
The secret sauce.
I'm
sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're just
I
kidding.
immediately wanted to
Okay,
say it.
I'm so sorry. It is your work output, is your power output, your
Capacity.
what your body produces.
Love it. Any additions to that?
Yeah, intensity is your capacity, but it's relative to you, right? Intensity is your version of intensity. Everyone is going to be different, but it is ultimately like your capacity in this movement. How heavy can you go? How fast can you push? But it is the secret sauce, but it is also I'm sorry. I had to with you. But it's an important piece, but it is also the final piece, right? It should not take place of mechanics. It should not be in front of it. It should not be in front of like consistency. It's added to it, right? It's the addition to those things, but it should not be your primary focus.
You know, there is the like formulaic breakdown of what CrossFit considers to be intensity. Don't want to misquote it, but
I was saying-
to find it right times.
Um,
We covered it in a previous podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen to-
or like what's it like 60%?
70%?
Yeah, 70%.
70% high intensity, is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not very good.
No. I just no
numbers, okay?
You just set a percentage to me, and I just want to make sure.
But right, so like if we take, our like a 1 rep max is a pretty easy way to work a percentage. 70% of that is intense, right? That is considered intense work still. So I think it's just, when you cross into a threshold of performance or output that is, again, like relative to your maximal effort.
Love it. How can we achieve an intensity? I love that we all take really deep breaths after each question.
I mean, achieve intensity. Any intensity is on a spectrum. So I guess if we're trying to achieve higher intensity, so the formula that Erin was referring to is your force times distance divided by your time. So you can increase your load, you can move something further, or you can go faster to increase your intensity. Similarly, you can do the opposite of all of those to reduce your intensity, if it makes sense.
Love it. How can we practice mechanics, consistency, and intensity all the time? How we say in our little notes that Justin gives us, mechanics, consistency, intensity is not a one-time process. It happens every single time we walk into the gym. Explain that.
So you are thinking about any progression, right? You're thinking of any single movement that we do in here. And this starts, it doesn't matter what the movement is, you go through this process, right? So if you've never done a pull-up in your life, you're gonna do a ring row, right? We are gonna nail down those proper positions and we're gonna consistently hit that. And then we're gonna add the intensity piece in a workout. We're gonna have you do it fast. Then once that feels really good and you that's easy. Now we're gonna get you on a pull-up bar, right? And then you're gonna restart that process all over again. So this is a lifelong cycle, and it doesn't matter how progressed you are in any movement, right? If you do bar muscle ups, if you do ring muscle ups, this is gonna happen all the time. And intensity is the final piece because in my mind, intensity is the one thing that kind of almost not proves your fitness, that sounds wrong, but pushes your fitness. It tests your fitness. Can you go fast? Can you go slightly heavier? And you're always going to kind of go back to, well, last year I was able to do chin ups and only chin ups. Now I can do chest to bar and I can do those consistently and I can do them really fast. Okay, what's the next step? But I'm sure you guys have maybe additional thoughts on this.
I mean, I think as far as when you walk into the gym every day, the class is set up for you to practice mechanics, do it consistently, and then add intensity, right? The expectation that we have and the way that we run things here is that we have a general warm up. That general warm up is informed by kind of our end goal, like the workout, right, that we're doing. So we have a general warm up. We're starting the mechanics. We're like getting the mechanics greased and grooved. Then we move into a specific warm up. We're drilling it over and over. We're doing reps of high pulls and cleans and all of those different things that we do, kind of whatever our primary focus is of the day. And then the workout comes, and now it's time to add intensity. So on a day-to-day basis, the form it's given to you. You as an athlete, you don't really have to think that hard about how to do that every day. I think, you know, I don't want to like digress off that too much, but when it comes to the intensity piece, your mechanics and your consistency are what's going to save you, right? So when things are really grindy, and you know, let's say maybe it's like a high rep day or a high rep push jerk or something, my mechanics and my consistent mechanics, the things that I've done every day leading up to this, are what saves me in those moments so that I can continue to move efficiently and therefore increase my intensity and go faster. So I mean, the day in, day out formula of a class is like mechanics. Do it again. Now do it faster and with more weight and longer and all these other things.
For sure. Yep. We preach in CrossFit intensity, and a lot of times that tends to be why it can get a bad rap, right? It's so intense, like it's so hard. You come in and you like go balls to walls. People are throwing up, like it's intensity.
Camp CrossFit,
right? Yeah, some CrossFit it's so fun. Why is it important to develop mechanics and consistency before adding that intensity piece in?
For your safety. And your efficiency, right? Like what Erin was just talking about is the better you move, the more you weight and faster and all of that you're gonna be able to move, right? Within the confines of what that movement is. But if you are moving horribly, stuff is going to break down more and you're going to be able to move less weight or yourself or whatever that might be. And it is for your safety, right? I don't want you to brace your belly in a deadlift just for funsies. Like it's supporting your back, right? And you know, using your hip contact in your clean is going to make it so you can move more weight safely. So a combination of all of those mechanics is going to put your safety and your efficiency and the efficacy of the program at the forefront.
Yeah, I know that's always like something I think about is like I'm not telling you to put your elbows up because I'm trying to be an asshole, you know, because I'm like some control freak, right? It's there's a reason why these movements are meant to be done in the way that we're telling you to do them.
So
you know,
it's funny because I just thought about this of like, I'm not doing it to be a jerk to you. Like,
yeah, sorry.
there's we already swear. I would say like a really good example of this, if like you've never done CrossFit or you're new to it, anything like that, let's bring it to a real world example, which is actually funny because I just reread this. Was they use the example of when you learn to drive. You start out in a little parking lot going less than 10 miles an hour. And you're learning to turn signals. You're learning how to stop appropriately, look both directions. And then they're going to say, okay, now we're going to go into a neighborhood. Then we're going to get you really comfortable there. And then we're going to get you onto a high-speed freeway, right?
It's the worst part.
I know. I was like, who taught you to drive? Because those are not mine.
That's the
worst. Jim Reynolds did not.
But using real world example, can you imagine putting a 14, 15-year-old and saying, you've never gotten in a car and I'm going to put you onto how to merge into a freeway.
Yeah.
It is overwhelming. And that's immediately how dangerous situations happen. And it's the exact same thing that you put into a fitness world, right? Okay, I'm going to put you in. I've never taught you how to deadlift a bar. I've never told you how to do a GHD sit-up. You don't even have the ab or core stability. And I'm going to throw you on a GHD and I'm going to tell you to do reps. It's a terrible idea. We're not going to add in the intensity. That is your base structure, you'll crumble. Right? That sounds dramatic, but I would agree. I would hope that we all agree that if you were to use intensity as your structural piece in the gym, you have nothing to fall back on. It is hollow. But if you put it at the top and you can use those two other things to pull it together, beautiful. Good job.
The other thing I would add, so because you had kind of mentioned how CrossFit, the big thing is about its intensity. And that is true. That is why we are able to produce results, but we are able to get that intensity because of the mechanics underneath it, right? Like I kind of said this, but I don't think I'd fully formed this thought of like how well we push everybody to move and how consistently well we push everybody to move allows for higher power output and higher intensity, which those are one and the same, and then allows for results.
Love it. Any closing thoughts on this topic?
I do just think we did hammer down a lot on the mechanics because it is so fundamental, but the intensity piece is equally important once it is safe for you to do so. It is where results are found. It is how you get the outcomes that you would like. And so when it is time and safe for you to do so, please layer in that piece. And like Erin said, it doesn't have to be maximal intensity. It is very rare that I have a member in here throw up. Like that is
Not the goal.
that is very, there's one that I can think of that has, right? So like that is not a requirement. It is just a requirement that you are above 70% effort on any given day. And doing that a few times a week. So that piece is still cannot be understated as important enough, even though we have harped on the mechanics. And so you want to find a nice balance where both of those are relatively high and neither is perfect. Because if you are moving perfectly, your intensity is probably too low. And if you are 100% intensity, your mechanics are probably way too low.
I would say the one other thing, and I kind of said it a little bit, the one other thing that I think is really important that members new and seasoned need to really think about as they approach intensity, it is not the same across the board. You cannot compare that to the person next to you. Your intensity is not on a gym level, it is on a personal level. And that needs to also be at the forefront. If somebody next to you is back squatting, how much for 245? Let's just say a lot of weight. And that is their 70, 80%, but your back squat is at 80, 70%, 100. That does not mean your output is not enough. It does not mean that you are not putting forth the exact same effort. You are. It just looks different. So don't have this thought in the back of your mind that I'm not doing enough because it's not heavy. I'm not faster. I'm not experienced in these things. No, it is exactly what it's meant to be as long as you are intentional about what that intensity looks like for yourself.
I would, just echo, all of those things. I think finding joy in each part of that process. I think breaking down mechanics is really fun. I like to be coached and I like to be kind of told, how can you get better? How can you fix this? I feel really good when I'm in here doing things consistently. And, like turns out. And then on the days when I feel good and I think, and you add in a lot of intensity, that's also really, it can be really fun. And that's when you see results and you're like, oh my God, like I just PR'd that by 2 minutes or whatever. So finding joy in each part of that, I think, and kind of knowing where you're at in the process and the journey. Would be
It's not stagnant, it's progressive.
Yeah.
all those things.
And then too, if you're new to adding intensity, if you're new to the gym and maybe like intensity is sort of scary to you, or you're not really sure like how, like where do I start? How do I know when to push it? Just start with a workout that has things that you like and that you're good at. If you know you're really strong, so you're really good at back squatting, and like there's a day where it's maybe kind of like, you know, a heavier squat day or something, like use that day for your intensity. Like start with the things that you enjoy and do well, and then kind of the rest will come. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, thank you guys for joining me. And you guys heard it here first. Mechanics, consistency, intensity. This is not the first time you've heard it because we've said it
A lot.
for years. So
Here we are.
good job, you guys.